Welcome to She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator. And my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you lots of throat clearings. Share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to talk about a topic or two. If you're not new here, then you know every week we have a new poll. And that is generally the topic of the day. Put my coffee down. And this week, we're talking about live direction. And so the poll is, what is your biggest worry about live direction? Why would you hold yourself back from that additional source of income? Because if you have been on any of the voiceover platforms, Voice123, Voices.com, Bidalgo, any of them, as you're going through the projects that are available, some of them require live direction, and you might not want to audition for those just because of the live direction. So we're going to see if we can, ease some of those fears today. So the responses for the poll were freezing under pressure. If you haven't voted yet, go ahead and get your vote in. Freezing under pressure, taking feedback badly, tech or setup issues, and not nailing the tone. So we have about 24 votes so far, and it looks like the majority of you, 42% of you, said not nailing the tone is your biggest hang up for not offering live directed sessions. And this even goes for freelance platforms too. You can offer live direction on Fiverr and Upwork too, as well. So that could be something that you could offer on those platforms that could make you a little bit more money and maybe, solidify yourself in somebody's roster. Close second is tech or setup issues. So if you have specific questions regarding really any of those responses, then put them in the chat. And as we go through the comments, we'll see if we can answer your questions to help you get out there and maybe get over I think for the majority of us, it's probably fear of something, whether it's freezing under the pressure, taking that feedback badly, tech or setup issues, or not nailing the tone. All right. So I think what we're going to do here is just give you some of my notes that I wrote down for you guys. When it comes down to live directions, the first impressions do matter, but I don't want you to put a bunch of weight on what if they don't like me? Or what if I fall on my face? What if I don't understand? What if I take the criticism, or not even criticism, what if I take the feedback in a negative way, right? I think those are the major fears to keep you from offering live direction. But as long as you are prepared and comfortable with the amount of preparation that you have done, just go for it. You might find that it's the complete opposite of what you were thinking was going to happen. It's the fear of the unknown. I think it's a pretty normal thing, right? What if it goes wrong? But what if it goes right? What if it goes right? So being prepared taking feedback with grace, clarify unclear direction. These are the notes that I wrote down. Don't self-direct too much. Be open to what they're telling you, meaning not to make too many assumptions about where you think the script should go, and just sort of be open-minded to what the client wants. It's generally the purpose of live direction, right, is to really get across what they're looking for. And recording multiple takes if you're unsure. Things you can do to prep is to make sure that I have found that most of the clients that I have done live directed sessions with have been over Zoom. But you have Source Connect, you have Connection Open, you have a couple of others, but I think the most used is Source Connect. And I believe you can still get a free version, or at least download the software for Source Connect. If a client uses Source Connect, what it is basically it's a online platform that allows them to record you on their end. Versus if you were to meet them via Zoom, you would just record locally on your computer, and then they would direct you through the session. And then once the session was over, you would clean it up, do whatever it is that they want you to do to it, and then send them the audio file. Whereas Source Connect, they can record you on their end, and then just take the files and do whatever they want to do with it. But if you at least have the software in your computer system, they will send you like an invite link, right? So they would more often than not pay for the session. And then you would just have to have the software on your computer to be able to communicate with the two computers. But again, most of the sessions I've done have been over Zoom, and I've recorded on my end locally. So don't let any of that keep you back. It's not scary. Look into it. Source Connect, I think, is the most commonly used, or still is the most commonly used. If you have the script beforehand, before you go live with whomever you're meeting with, then read through it. Remember the W's. Remember or think about who you are as the narrator, who you're speaking to, and why are you speaking to them. If you can fully understand the purpose of the script narration, then you'll be more comfortable and confident in meeting with these people. You could even mark up the script a bit. As you've read through it a couple of times, you could start to get a feel for the flow, where you need to pause, where you need to give emphasis, where you can take a breath. And keep in mind that they're not going to expect you to just give it one take and be done. So your first take doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to concern yourself with nailing it on the first go. That is the whole point of live direction, is to try different things, is to listen to what they're telling you and then giving it several takes. So the end result, they could very well have, even if it's a short commercial script, they could very well have, 10, 15 different takes or more to use. So don't worry so much about nailing the take on the first go. That is not what is expected on a live directed session. But having that preparation done is going to make you feel more confident and comfortable going into the live directed session. Also, if there's anything that you need help pronunciation-wise, those would be great notes to write down for yourself. If it's a character, then hopefully you have backstory on the character, maybe even a visual. Start playing with some character voices, right? Prep before you meet up with them. You could even ask them when you meet, I'm sure they're going to tell you this, but you could even ask, are you looking for, or I was thinking maybe warm, conversational, or whatever. And they'll say, yeah, or no, right? You could ask some of those questions, but the clarifying questions, don't be afraid to ask. If they ask you a question, or if they ask you to try a particular tone or pace or something, Don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions. It's okay to ask questions. It just shows that you're a professional, right? Don't think that's going to make you look bad to ask questions. You want to be clear as the professional that you're giving them what they're asking for. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Make sure you have water and a notepad with you too. Technical setup. Going back to having the software for Source Connect on your computer. Also, be sure that your Wi-Fi or your internet, I should say, is hardwired, meaning plugged into the Ethernet. It's not Wi-Fi. You don't want to use Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi, as you know, sort of fluctuates throughout the day, and you don't want that to affect your recording session. You want to make sure that your internet is plugged in and that your recording space, because you are going to be on camera, so you want to make sure that your recording space or your recording area is clean and quiet. Your air conditioner isn't running. You don't have, dust bunnies or, you want it to look halfway decent. It doesn't need to look like a professional studio. Many casting directors are aware that voice actors have home studios, but not everybody has the luxury of owning a Whisper Room or a Studio Bricks booth or, just make sure that it looks clean and tidy, basically. We've already touched on the software. Make sure you test it to make sure that it functions on your computer, whether it's Zoom or Source Connect. Double checking the time zones and session length expectations. Those are things that you probably would have talked about already before the live session, but you want to just verify where they are time zone wise and make sure that you have the timing correct for when you're meeting. You don't want to be an hour early or an hour late or more. That's just egg on your face, right? And then also make sure that your schedule allows for the time that they want to speak with you. And sessions are usually either 15 minutes, 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, depending on what it is that you're narrating. So make sure that you have enough time in your schedule to accommodate that. So make sure you ask those questions up front and clarify. Let's see. Show up on time or a few minutes early. I'm one of those people that if I'm not early, then I'm late, right? That's probably a good rule of thumb to be a few minutes early at the least. Acknowledging feedback. So if they do ask you a question or they give you a direction, then you can clarify by saying something like, got it. All right, this time we're going to do a little warmer or a little bit more relaxed. We're going to give this more energy, whatever it is. Just make sure that you're clarifying so that you're understanding what they're asking for. After the session, make sure that you follow up and say thank you. Right? It's just good business, right? Thanks for the great session. I'll send the cleaned up files to your tech specs. Make sure that you know how they want the files, if they want them broadcast ready, if they want them unprocessed. Make sure you have an understanding of how they want the file sent to them. If sometimes they don't want any editing at all. They want retakes, the banter in between, they want all of it. So make sure you're understanding what they're expecting you to send them. I think it was pretty much it for my notes. But if you guys have, those were just my bullet pointed notes basically. But if you have questions about anything specific, then please ask it in the chat. Let's get over to the chat. We got quite a few comments. Who was here? There was quite a few comments before I even got in here today. So Dwight was first in. Hey, Dwight. Good morning, Angela, my fellow Angelinos and Angelinas. Your voice is more than sound. It's the spark that brings stories to life. The bridge between emotion and imagination. Speak with truth, and the world will listen. That is something we should probably write down, print out, and put front and center in our studios to look at every day. It's a great reminder to just be you, right? So often we, especially in the beginning, and I've done it too, where you hit the record button and then you put on your voice actor voice, right? I am the narrator. I have my narrator voice, and now we're going to narrate. Just be you. Don't be somebody else unless you're directed to be somebody else. Otherwise, just be yourself. They hired you because they liked your, how connected you were to the copy, or how genuine and authentic you sounded, how normal and human you sounded, right? I shouldn't say normal. I should say natural. It wasn't forced, right? Unless they're asking for the announcer voice, then give them that, of course. But for the most part, they just want an authentic human being, using authentic human emotion. So just be yourself. And it'll come across that way, more authentic and genuine. Ken says, morning all. To work with the director remotely would take some finagling of my studio blanket fort, though I suppose I could Wi-Fi my tablet into a Zoom meeting, connecting with the mic and recorder. And it might take a little bit of finagling depending on how your studio is set up. For example, my studio, I have everything in my room apart from my computer, which is outside to mitigate the noise issue. But then I have 2 monitors in here, and then my camera is kind of snugged up between them. So I can look at a script here, or I can look at them here, look at a script here, whichever. My DAW's usually on this one. So I'm front facing and off axis with my microphone. Instead of, if I'm looking this way, then there's more chance for plosives, for talking right into my mic. So I'll face this way and talk past the microphone. But I can put them here so I can see them. That's basically how I've got it set up. But again, keep in mind, if your studio isn't on-screen ready, no big deal. Just make sure that whatever's behind you is. Your entire studio doesn't need to be, again, look like a professional Whisper Room or a Studio Bricks booth or anything. It just has to look good for, a couple of feet behind you. Right? They're not going to see the entire thing. But you definitely don't want to use a Wi-Fi connection. I would say if you need another way to utilize a camera, I would get just a cheap webcam and, do that way. If you can hardwire into your studio, into whatever computer unit your studio is using. Or if you have to use a tablet for the camera, then I would let them know that what you're looking at, what you're seeing them on is on a tablet, or, you know what I mean? I would make sure that it's known. That way they don't think that you're recording over Wi-Fi and what they're seeing is what the end result is going to be, because it might be a little bit glitchy. And Wi-Fi just is, right? It's not perfect. It's not a perfect connection 100% of the time. Does that make sense? I hope. Yeah, the technical difficulties, JPEG. Yeah. Oh, that's me. Kat says, good morning, all. I'm leaving donuts since I don't know if I'll be back from my appointment by the time we get started. Gently push all the buttons. Yes, please do all the YouTube-y things. If you're watching this in Team Replay, then please consider subscribing, hitting the bell, all of those things. Interacting with my content definitely helps feed the algorithm gods. That really helps my channel. I'll definitely take the donuts. Paul says, howdy, howdy, howdy. And then Caesar's here. Hey, Caesar, how's the storm? Caesar says, oh, hi, Angela. I picked not nailing the tone at random. My real biggest worry about live direction is actually being the director, because that's the extent of my experience with live directing. Yeah, you're on the other end of it. I've directed 2 live sessions with 2 sets of narrators. With both, the challenge has always been how to instruct without doing line reads, which is the own type of challenge. I much prefer Eric's or Craig's from our Platinum, shameless plug, method of setting up scenarios. Over time, I got better at doing this, even guiding a narrator through a Dragon Shifter performance. Interesting. I'd like to be a fly on the wall for that one. Paul says, good day, Angela et al. Trying to get a lengthy chapter finished, so may not be joining you live. I've directed enough sessions myself over the years for it to not be a source of concern. But, that said, I've not been subjected to a live directed session in the past 4 years, so I might change my tune. I mean, why not? Again, going back to the whole fear thing, it's all of these responses in the poll are fear. Thinking negatively, right, of what could happen. But the complete opposite could be true. It could go just fine. And then you worried and waited for nothing. Right? The times that I have been live directed, I've never had a bad experience. I've never had a bad experience. As long as you're open to understanding and taking the feedback that they're giving you, because it's not personal feedback. It's them directing you to get what they're looking for, right? So it doesn't mean that, if you don't nail it on the first take that you're a bad voice actor. That's not what that means. It just means that they're looking for something a little bit different than what you initially assumed that they wanted or what your brain told you that they wanted. It's the whole point of live direction is to help you get to that place and to give them exactly what they're looking for. But the benefits of working with someone live far outweigh the negative. If you put yourself out there and open yourself up to live direction, it could go, and it usually does, the best way possible. And not only that, but then you've proven yourself to this company, to this business, to this casting director. And now you're on their mind for future projects. And not only that, but there could also be referral business in there too. And then once you've got your first live directed session done, then you can say, heck yeah, that was easy. I'm totally going to do that again. It's just like hitting that record button for the first time and recording something. Once you got past that, right, then everything else was relatively cake. Then you felt good about everything that you were doing. It's the same thing with live directed sessions. Just try it. Caesar says, but when time is of the essence, we usually fall back to mimicry, particularly when it comes to shifting accents. No hard and fast rules to directing, so I balance between telling and guiding, and that's usually what I find working with casting directors or whomever on the other end of Zoom, is that is the purpose of live direction, it's guidance to get what they need out of you. It's not to, look down on you and belittle you. And they're just people like us. They're people like you and me, just trying to get a particular sound down. They're not there to criticize you. That said, hello, everyone. This is day 6 of going through a tropical superstorm. Oh, geez. No internet access. I'm using cellular and power is intermittent. That sucks, Caesar. Hoping the storm leaves before Thursday. Yeah, we need you in our Platinum group. You're driving the bus. Glowin says, top of the day to you, voiceover Angela in chat. I've never had live direction, but I think I would have issues with nailing the tone as I don't have the experience with direction yet. I wouldn't worry so much about nailing the tone because I wouldn't expect that you would nail it on the first take anyway. Because you're just kind of throwing out, again, your educated guesstimation of what it is they're looking for until they guide you to where they need you to be. That is the point. So don't worry about not nailing the tone. They will guide you to the place where you can nail the tone, right? It could take several takes. That's the point. I'm sorry, I keep just repeating myself. Just want to make sure I hammer that point home. Don't worry about nailing the tone. Glowen said, so I've been a little busy. I've been a busy little VO beaver these past few days. Have some auditions in and have been scanning twice a day since the last episode. Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the encouragement to all. Good. Get those auditions in and open yourself up to live direction. It also helps to maybe, assuage the fears of any kind of company casting director or anybody you're working with that you're not an AI, too. It's becoming a more prevalent issue that I'm seeing, is that people are concerned that voice actors are using AI voices when we're not. So if they're live directing you, then they can clearly see that you're a person and that you're not using an AI voice, right? So I think we'll see more and more of live direction for just that purpose. So definitely open yourself up to it. Hello, David. Good morning. Jules is here. Good morning, darling. Morning all from stormy Florida, where the thunder is the only thing that gets through my booth. But even that is intermittent. I don't work when we have monsoon, which is now monsoon season, although we haven't seen a monsoon yet. I usually don't, I'm not in the studio. I shut everything down, turn everything off during thunderstorms. I'm just paranoid, I suppose. Dwight says, my issues are too many to count here, but I am a sensitive soul, so it has taken years to adjust my psyche to be constructive. But old habits die hard, and I work on them every day. Not bad at it now. Meredith, don't be afraid. I see that the poll is slightly shifting in favor of tech or setup issues. There's really not much that can go wrong, apart from, I think, Wi-Fi or the internet would be my major concern, would be the thing that I would be most concerned about for a live directed session. And even if the internet, even if something happened with the internet, then you might have to reschedule for maybe later in the day, try again later in the day. I mean, it's not the end of the world, is my point. Maybe you'll have to schedule with them in 24 hours. Stuff like this happens. I've had it happen a number of times, not on my end, but on the people that I was working with. They would, day of, sometimes an hour or two before, say, hey, we're having, internet issues or whatever. We have to reschedule. It happens all the time. So don't put too much weight on tech or setup issues. As long as you have downloaded, and they will tell you up front, and if not, ask them what they plan to use to connect with you, whether it's Source Connect, whether it's Zoom, or just ask them how they plan to meet with you and how they plan to write the tech specs. How do they want the audio files sent to them, or if they're using Source Connect, they'll record on their end. But ask these questions, and that usually happens before the meeting. If you have all the information of what to expect and how to deliver the files, right, then you'll have the appropriate software that you need to use, and you would have tested it before the meeting, right? So, I mean, as long as you take the time to do these things, this prep beforehand, that sort of eliminates most of the tech or setup issue concerns, right? Don't let the fear of these things keep you back. Don't ever let fear decide what direction you go in. You decide. Fear doesn't decide. Fear does not determine your fate. You do. So don't let fear win. Smack it in the face and do everything I'm telling you, and you'll be fine. Have a little confidence in yourself. Tangent. Dwight says, we only get better when we can be a sponge and use the contents wisely and without emotion. Without emotion? We want emotion. Alicia says, hello all. Hello, Alicia. Alex says, first time early. Yay. Hello, everyone. Hi, Angela. Hello, Alex. I'm currently at work. Good thing I work from home. Good day, everyone. Yes, I like to tease my beau about the differences in our commutes. I just have to walk downstairs with my coffee. That's my morning commute. As Caesar would say, pants are optional. Rebecca says, good morning all. Freezing under the pressure is my biggest worry. I tend to overthink, same. So if I get a direction that I don't know what to do with, yeesh. But just know that as soon as you get into the live directed session, you say your pleasantries, right? Nice to meet you, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. I'm so glad to be working with you. And then you start to get into, the nuts and bolts of it. Then by that point, you'll feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Because they're not complete strangers. And if you have to, then whatever, like if you're using Zoom, for example, what I did for the very first one, because, introvert, and I couldn't take the eyes on me knowing that someone was staring at me. It's a little different than YouTube. You guys are different. You guys are my friends. But for people that, So anyway, I would take the Zoom meeting screen and move it to a place and then cover it with something else. So I know they were looking at me, but I couldn't see them looking at me, if that makes sense. I was just listening to what they were saying. So do what you got to do, but don't put too much weight on, and I get the overthinking. I do. Hang on, let me check my air conditioner. I think it thinks that I'm not home. It's hot in here. Tanya's here. Hey, Tanya. Evening all. I've said tech setup because they might want to use Source Connect or something I haven't used. Last time I had 7 people from the company staring at me silently. Bit intimidating. And that can be typical. I think the times that I've been live directed, there had been no more than 2 people apart from myself. So 3 of us in total, but that's a lot to have 7 people in a live directed session. But I could see that if it was if there was maybe the writer and then the video, the person that puts everything together with the video, I could see if there was different elements of people in there giving their feedback or what they need. I can see that, but in that case, I would definitely have to hide the screen. So I couldn't see them. I'm looking at the script and I'm looking at my DAW. That's about it. Yeah. Glywin says, hope everyone has a fresh, hot cup of coffee and some snacks. No snacks, but my coffee's lukewarm at this point. Smash the buttons. Or gently click them, Caesar says, so I made a nice coffee blend today. Hazelnut, Arabica, local Excelsa, non-dairy creamer, and wild black forest honey. The scent is wafting through my studio and aromatizing it. I made a word, Mom. That sounds heavenly. I've gotten into the habit of, for the first hour of the day, I have to have black coffee. So I've taken to adding cinnamon and honey to it, and it makes it a little bit more tolerable. That's about the extent of my exoticness. But I use Black Rifle coffee. So I have Black Rifle coffee, and then, which is just, what blend is it? I think it's just a medium blend, and then cinnamon and honey. But yes, the aroma's amazing. Anne is here. Hey, Anne. Good day, all. Currently in rainy northern Montana. I am curious to learn about the live direction today. Good. I'm hoping we're helping so far. I'm hoping oh, we got a super chat. Hold on. Scrolling. Okay, Dwight. Thank you, Dwight. Dwight says, your Platinum Group Thursday night workshops where we narrate and take feedback is also a great example of taking direction. Yes, you're absolutely right. I think that is a great preparation for live direction, because we pretty much do exactly that when we go through auditions. And we do that once a month in my platinum group because we had to break the larger group into smaller groups. And then every month, one of those smaller groups has the opportunity to submit auditions that they've done. And then we listen to them together and then give feedback on them and tips and pointers and things. So, and then even when we do live reads together in the group, then we get immediate feedback and direction. So you're right, that's a great primer for live direction, I think. So again, it all comes back to what I always stress, and that is find groups, find workshops, find masterminds, find peer groups that you can join that do these kinds of things, because it will prepare you in many different ways, and much of which you probably didn't even anticipate needing. So great point, Dwight, because we do that. And you are awesome. You are awesome. All of you watching and interacting, doing all the YouTubey things. I appreciate you. You guys are all awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you, Dwight. It was awfully kind of you. Now I have to find where I left off. Hold on, y'all. Oh my gosh. We have so many comments. Okay. Here's the coffee one. Okay. Dwight says, I do take acting training, and that has helped me in the taking direction much more constructively. I think those listening skills I hope will cross over. Absolutely. Abe Froman says, good morning from Nashville. Listening in while working my day job. You make my Tuesday go by faster. Well, good. If I can do anything to help you, at least make the day feel like it's going by faster. Glowin says, Caesar sounded good until you said hazelnut. Not a fan of it. Well, hey. That's fine. I am. I love hazelnut. Katya says, hiya. Hi, Katya. How you doing? And says, that sounds delicious. It does. Glowin says, I think, honestly, in my case, I'd like to get some voice training first before I sought out direction. I guess it depends on what you consider to be voice training. Now, and I say that because a lot of what I hear with people just starting out in voice acting is that they think they need to fix their voice for some reason, that they need to fix their voice to sound more like this person or whatever, which isn't true at all. You are unique. What makes you different is what makes you marketable, which makes you, desirable. So don't ever think that you have to fix your voice. Now, if we're talking about maybe enunciation, diction, things like that, then yeah, that could definitely help, because you don't want to sound like a mush mouth when you're recording something. You want to be not too articulate, but you want to make sure that the words that you are reading are sounding like the words that are in the script, and not, an amalgamation of several different words and mushy. So if that's the case, then yes, definitely do that. My cup of tea says, my concern is not understanding what the director is asking for. I picked not nailing the tone. As a result, from stage acting and just life, I ask clarifying questions to make sure communication is clear. And don't forget that you can also ask them for an example. If you're asking clarifying questions and it's still not clicking, ask them to read it in the way that they want it read. And at the very least, you have something to mimic and build off of, right? You don't want to completely mimic it the same way, but pretty close, I would say. Yeah, and then you could probably build off it from there. But you can ask them for an example. But clarifying questions is always good. Hope the day is going well for all of you. So far, so good. Dwight says, I'm rethinking my answer. Now that I think of it, I am taking direction much better. So maybe tone and getting it right would be next. As a pleaser, I want to get that part of it right. Maybe they both apply, taking direction and getting the tone right. I think, for me, taking direction would be the only thing that would concern me. Not because I think I'm taking it personally, but maybe it's just ego, but maybe I would think that I nailed it, but then it wasn't what they wanted at all. And that's, I think, the hardest part. And then you would just have to go, oh, it's the disappointment in yourself, I guess. But if you ask those clarifying questions and if you give it a couple tries and then adjust as you go, I mean, again, that's the whole point of live direction, is to help guide you to getting to that place where you can deliver what they're asking for. And the person that is directing you, in most cases, they would have experience already in this arena with directing other people. So you can sort of lean on them a bit for direction. And again, ask those clarifying questions, give it a couple of tries. And in this conversation that we're having now, we might be overthinking it together. It might not even come to that in most cases. You might just they might just say, okay, just, act like you're talking to your mom. Okay, well, that's relatively easy. I've done that before at some point in my life. I can definitely deliver that, and then give it your take, and they'll say, okay, a little softer. Do it again. I mean, you know what I mean? So we might even be overthinking it together here as a group. It might turn out to be just fine, right? They might have you booked for a half an hour and the whole session takes 5 minutes because everything was fine and you overthought the whole thing. I've been there. I've done it. I understand. Rochelle says, good morning, Angela and everyone. Brought handmade individual strawberry cheesecake and cherry pies. It's about being prepared and really understanding what they are wanting. I'd love a live. And even if you don't understand going into the session, don't understand what they're looking for, and the probability of that is probably slim. At least you might have an idea, right? So you at least have a good idea of where to start when you get into the session. But at the end of it, you would have delivered what they're asking for because they guided you there. Kristen says, good morning from an overcast LA. Yeah, it's a little overcast here too. We were hoping to get some rain. I don't think we did. Monsoon's just taking forever. Glowen says to Rochelle, those sound yummy. Heck yeah, they do. Jules says, I've never realized how I pronounce certain words. And the funny thing is that when you're being live directed, you might just find out that your regional pronunciation of something is not what they wanted. Because we have regional pronunciations of things, of certain words, right? I learned that fairly quickly moving to Arizona, that what looked phonetically correct to me was not how it was pronounced here in Arizona. So, but that's where they can say, okay, no, but since this is going to be played in Arizona, we need you to pronounce it like this. So it appeals to Arizonians. It'll sound like it's coming from a native. Does that make sense? But apart from that, if there's like a medical term or something like that, make sure that you have Merriam-Webster.com on a, bookmarked on your browser, and look up the pronunciation for these words. But if you pronounce it wrong during the live directed session, again, that's the point of this, so they can say, no, I would like you to pronounce it this way. And again, don't take it personally. Just again, for the Arizona example, it could be just a regional pronunciation thing, right? Or, this is how they pronounce it in the UK. Something of that nature. Mark Samuel says, good morning, Angela, my VO friends. When would you send a thank you after the session? Oh, I mean, I do with the files. And even if they used Source Connect and they already have what they need, I would immediately, like within the hour, within the half hour, say, hey, this was great. Thank you so much. I had a great time. It was nice to meet, so-and-so. If there was multiple people in there, immediately. Rebecca says, oh yes, a few of us have made time zone mistakes before. Oh yeah. Yeah. Caesar says, on the subject of time zones, I had to manage a session with someone in the West Coast, Central, and in the UK. And I'm in the Philippines. I had to host these recording sessions at 4 a.m. Eesh. Tanya says, one thing that nearly caught me out when recording locally was that the director wanted a different sample type and bit depth than I'm used to in my everyday audiobook recording. Yeah, and I've had that happen to me too, where I was recording an audiobook and I know the file formatting necessary for audiobooks. For most distributors, it's about the same. But when an author is telling you, this is for an audiobook, but I want this bit depth and this sample rate, I would have to think that's got to be for maybe they're choosing a whole different distribution plan, or that they're going to be mixing your dialogue in with, and they want the raw files or they want a different format because they're going to be matching it to somebody else's and then processing it from there. There could be a number of reasons why they're asking you, but that's why it's important to not overlook the tech specs. Even when you think you know what they're asking for, still read through them. Because that's a great point, Tanya. Make sure that you're giving them what they're asking for. Otherwise, you might have to re-record the whole session, and you really got egg on your face then. Caesar says, speaking of in-between banter during directed sessions, these make excellent TikTok reels for those of y'all playing the social media game. But I think those for the banter, it would have to be just your side, unless you have permission from whomever you're in the session with to record them as well. So be careful with that. Make sure you understand the laws for recording people. Tanya says, I also nearly missed a recording because I read 0000 on the 20th as midnight that night instead of midnight on the 19th. Oh boy. That's tricky. Dylan says, hi all. Hey, Dylan. I said tech specs. Living in the middle of Amish country is great for recording, however, terrible for internet. Starlink is my only option where I live and can be spotty. Rebecca says to Caesar, I'm hoping to use more behind-the-scenes recording for social media content. Bloopers are great. Yes, bloopers are great for content. Lisa says, good morning, everyone, from rainy Alberta. Angela, can you expand a bit on not using Wi-Fi and plugging right into the Ethernet? Does this mean I need to plug my computer straight into the router? Yes. That's exactly what I mean. You remember back in the day, like in the 90s, when you had to plug in, into the wall and then plug it into your computer for the internet? That's what I'm talking about. Instead of using Wi-Fi, signals in the air that fluctuate all throughout the day. If you have a hard connection from your modem, your router, the wall, whatever, however you get internet, and then plugging it directly into your computer, that's what I mean. Pamela says, big box of donuts. The key thing a director does is try to accurately cast so he doesn't have to direct. That too. But there may be a little bit of guidance. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't need to live direct you. Right? Or maybe they just want to make sure that you are a person and not using an AI voice. Regardless of their why, it's still good to go in with an open mind and be ready to have fun. Because again, I think we forget quite a bit the reason why we have this job. Because it's fun. So have some fun. Life is short. Have fun with what you're doing. Dwight says, I would think directors in general are kind as they want you to succeed, so they succeed. Of course they want it in a timely fashion because time is money, and that may make some people nervous. Understandably so. Glowen says to Rebecca, I am, at this moment, playing with the settings on my new mic for my phone and GoPro so I can start adding content for my newly created IG and TikTok accounts. Nice. Dwight says to Rebecca, you are killing it in the TikTok world. We should all follow your lead. This weekend stuff was great. It was. Now back to the normal topic of the day. Alex says, I've been on both sides. Directing and been directed in studio, I think we are our worst enemies when we think they're gonna be hard on us. Normally, it's a very friendly experience, and that's the same experience that I've had. Friendly, fun. I mean, I can't think of a director that would come into a session with a poor attitude and just like poor energy. To come and like drill on you, to bring you down, because that's going to have the opposite effect of what they're trying to get done. If they're trying to get maybe an upbeat read or kind of really any read, I don't see a director coming in there just to crap you out. Just to waste the session with, bad energy. I don't see that happening. Right? That's kind of counterproductive. Dylan says, growing up as a theater kid, directors are great to work with as long as you are open to direction. It's pretty simple. And just be open-minded. Just be open-minded. Donovan says, hi, everybody. Don from South Africa used to be part of the stream a few months ago. Had to get a different day job to save up for VO and free up time, but still rocking the journey to go full-time. Good for you. And welcome back, Don. Thanks for all the great content, Angela. Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate you. Eric is here. Eric Grams. Hey, Eric. Hi, Angela and Team Angela. I'm here with French crullers and Boston cream donuts. My experiences with you and the incredibly talented members of the Platinum Group have been invaluable and equipped me for it. Boston creams are my favorite. Yes. Mine. Okay, bye. Dwight says, just an add-on to one of my former comments, take acting lessons. They are directed sessions of sorts. You will learn lots in many ways, especially taking direction. It's very true. So again, if you're in some sort of a voiceover academy workshop where you're taking feedback or acting lessons, anything where you're working online with someone else to improve your voiceover business in any way, shape, or form, that is great practice for working in a live directed session. Definitely. It's being open-minded and taking feedback not as personal, but as guidance. Joy says, good afternoon, Angela from sunny Southfield, Michigan. I'm open to live direction because another set of ears can tell me where my strengths and weaknesses are so I can work on them. Yes, live directed sessions is going to be, they're not going to give you so much feedback on your approach. They might, but I wouldn't count on a live directed session for a script to be the place where you learn. But if it's a live directed session and you're learning about how you maybe can't take direction very well, or maybe a little bit, you take it more personally than you should, that could be definitely a good place to find that out and to work on that. So I see what you're saying there, but it could be taken two different ways. But you're right. It's a great place to explore what you need to work on and where your strengths are. Rebecca says to Glowen, I've been thinking of getting a small mic for social media content. Keep the group updated on how you like it. Kat says, remember too that in live theater, there is a lot of rehearsal time before your performance. And I don't think you don't have the same rehearsal time when in live direction audio session. Where's the rest of it? Oh, here we go. So the director's notes are just their vision and not telling you that you are wrong, just want to try something different. Exactly. So all you can do in the prep time, you can consider that your rehearsal time, but at that time, you're rehearsing it in the way that makes sense to you based on the information that you have. But at least at that point, it's a good understanding of what it is that they're looking for. And then they are there to sort of fine-tune the outcome, the guidance. They're there to just fine-tune what you've already probably at that point picked up on as the intended tone, if that makes sense. Jewel says, I should turn everything off during storms, but then I'd never get any work done. Today would be a complete wash. It's almost certainly monsoon season. Glowin says to Rebecca, absolutely. Right now, I'm playing mostly with a gain on it. It's a little trickier than I thought it should be, but I'm insistent to make it right. Caesar says, some folks have techno fear. I think I have technophilia. Is that a term? Why does that sound naughty? It does. Glowin, thank you, Glowin. No, Caesar. Dwight says, when hooking up hardwired on Wi-Fi, do not forget to make sure that your wires are CAT rated, level your router, and network can use the max internet connection speed. I think my Ethernet cables are CAT. I just upgraded them not too long ago. I want to say they're Cat 7 or Cat 8, something like that. But basically, it's just the speed in which the Wi-Fi travels through the wires, basically. Yep. Nope. Bad Caesar. Because everything you say is a little spicy. That's right, because he's a spicy Caesar. Dwight says, no, Angela, don't make me get the sprayer. Kantia says, forgive me if you've already answered this. Is it safe to request Source Connect so that they can do the heavy lifting with the recording? I only ask this due to the Wi-Fi concern. As long as you have the software on your computer, then they will send you the link to meet via Source Connect and usually have a paid account to do that with. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you need a paid account, but you at least need the software on your computer so it can understand, so it can communicate with the other one, just to put it in the most basic terms. So, yes, but that would be a question that you would ask before you meet. How are we going to meet? Is it Source Connect? Is it Zoom? I mean, you're going to have those conversations before you meet. So then you might have a day or two to figure out how to make it work. Tanya says, I've been doing a few recording sessions via Discord now where you can't see anyone, only hear. We recorded absolutely everything, and it was so much fun. We did a couple of runs to get the nerves out. Nice. Katya says that sounds like a fabulous option. It does. It does. Abe says, since we're talking about live direction, I hope somebody gets the reference. If not, Google it. Stephen, this is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me? Why does that sound familiar? No, Dylan. Abby Book says, maybe a stupid question, but in a live session, can you request to listen back to what you just recorded? Listening back helps me figure out where I need to apply the direction given even from myself. Yeah. Why not? Or if you're still in the session with them, you can say, hang on a second, I want to just listen back to what I just did so I can kind of clarify in my own head if I hit the tone or not. But you can also ask them, because ultimately it's what they want. If the last take you just took was fine, then they might have you move on to the next piece, right? So I mean, if you have to match the tone from the last piece and they're moving on, you can listen back and just to remind yourself of how you did it. But I don't see that being a problem at all. I think they would probably appreciate that if you wanted to. Ken says, I suppose if the only way you have to connect is via Wi-Fi or Starlink or some other potentially glitchy access, as long as you make it clear to everyone, most are willing to work with it. And if you don't have a solid internet connection, you might want to mention that to them. So then that way you can say, okay, whichever way we're meeting right now, I'm going to record it locally as a backup even in my DAW and save it on my computer, and then I'll send you, right? So don't overthink the Wi-Fi thing. You can always record locally on your computer too as a backup. So if the Wi-Fi gets glitchy, then you still have the clean audio that you recorded on your DAW, save it, do whatever they need you to do with it, and then send it to them as a backup. Ken says, holy comma splice sentence. Okay. Glowen says, so to answer your answer to me wanting to take voice training, I've been listening to my own recordings and I have two criticisms. I lack tonal changes and I think I have marbles in my mouth. I'm trying to remember when you were working with us in the group. I think the best thing you can do if you don't have any tonal changes, you would naturally have tonal changes if you're speaking. I'm going to say from your heart, but again, understanding the W's, right? Who you are as the narrator. Because again, let's just say I'm a doctor speaking to a group of doctors. I'm not going to speak to a group of doctors as a doctor as I would if I was a kindergarten teacher talking to a bunch of parents, kindergarten parents, right? It would be a completely different tone and approach. So if you're understanding who you are as the narrator, who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, that's going to help your narration to come out of whatever you're saying a little bit more naturally. And you're going to naturally inflect and give energy and all of these things. But you're right, because when we say to give it 20% more, that's going to apply to most of what we do, to giving it a little bit extra than you would just normally speaking to someone. Because again, if I told you I was happy, even though I'm smiling, could you tell that I was happy? This is just the way that I normally speak. I'm not like over the top with emotion. But if I'm narrating something and I definitely want to sound that I'm happy, like I'm happy, then I might have to give it a little bit extra to sound like I'm happy, right? That was like 20, 30% more. So you're right. Sometimes, and that's the acting part, right? You got to give it a little bit more in some places to sort of change up the tone. And then the marbles in your mouth, if you can practice diction and enunciating and not allowing your mouth to get lazy, right? You might have to open it up a little bit more to make sure that you can enunciate words. And I'm doing this with my hands because, like, this helps. Telling you. So it might take a little bit of practice in doing things that might seem a little bit outlandish to you, but keep in mind that nobody can see you in your studio. Nobody can see you unless we're talking live directed sessions. But even then, I don't think they care. That all they care about is getting the result that they're asking for, right? So don't overthink these things. Looks like Tanya gets your reference. I can hear you, Clem Fandango. Why does that sound familiar? What is that from? All right, you guys, it's about that time. Mama's got work to do. If there's anything that you guys want to talk about in upcoming live streams, then please let me know in the comments. If you're watching this in Team Replay, please hit all the buttons, do all the YouTube-y things. I really appreciate it. Leave me a comment if there's something that you want me to make a live stream about or video content about. And as always, I thank you guys for attending these. I really appreciate it. I hope it helped. I hope it helped a couple people with a couple things. That's really my goal, is at least help somebody somewhere. But other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Those of you in my Platinum group, I'll see you guys on Thursday. Bye. Thank you for listening to She Lancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.